Whoa, can I help you?
Potato Man.
Where the hell have you been?
On the 14th of August, 1945, Ho Chi Minh declared Vietnam independent, despite a general lack of international recognition. The French forces returned soon after, and the Indochina War, or the anti-French resistance as it is known in Vietnam, began almost immediately. The French were supported by Allied aircraft and intelligence, as well as Bao Dai, commander of the Vietnamese National Army and the French-recognized state of Vietnam, largely based in the south. They supported the French against Ho and his Viet Minh due to a fear of communism and what that may entail. Both sides were supplied by other nations with modern fighting equipment, but the Viet Minh still suffered higher casualties than the French and its allies. As such, they often retreated to the jungles and fought a guerrilla war. For nearly 9 whole years, fighting raged, mostly around the north, but also parts of the south and even into Laos and Cambodia. Still, there seemed to be little gain from either side. The French saw success in a strategy of luring Ho's forces into attacking bases and fortifications, where the French had the most advantages. The Battle of Na San in 1952 confirmed this, with their fort using a hedgehog strategy in which each part of a fort can help easily defend the others. By 1954, the French people at home were getting frustrated with this protracted war halfway across the globe with no end in sight for a cause few seemed to understand anymore. All things in hindsight, eh? Christian de Castries sought to end the conflict in one giant, all-for-nothing battle that will completely crush the Viet Minh and force a favorable peace or victory in this war. They set up a fort around an old Japanese airfield that could be used to fly in supplies and reinforcements as needed. The fort followed the hedgehog strategy, with each of the outposts being named after Castries' past mistresses. One way or the other, Dien Biên Phu will be forever immortalized in the coming 57-day siege. The bulk of French forces, nearly 20,000 men, gathered at Dien Biên Phu, near the Laotian border. Nearly 65,000 men were under the command of Ho Chi Minh and his generals. On 13th of March, 1954, the Battle of Dien Bien Phu began. Before the battle, Viet Minh scouts were able to pinpoint the exact number and positions of French artillery. The Viet Minh then secretly pulled big guns up steep hills with ropes and pulleys, then camouflaged them to stop them from being easily spotted by aircraft. As such, when the battle began, the French had trouble pinpointing the Viet Minh guns. The French were losing more men than anticipated, but the Viet Minh were still losing far more. Despite this, the gun placements and the taking of the outpost Beatrice created a sense of disbelief and hopelessness among some of the French. In one case, Colonel Charles Pirot, who prior to the battle had claimed he had more guns than he needed, went into his bunker on the 15th of March and killed himself. This was only day 2 of the battle. The outpost Gabrielle would fall not long after, and a French counterattack failed to recapture it. The number of casualties on each side was getting closer and closer, and the French couldn't afford these losses. A group of TIE fighters, no, not that TIE fighters, and no, not that kind of TIE fighters either. The TIEs were an ethnic group who were loyal to the French, and were being regularly bombarded with propaganda leaflets from the Viet Minh telling them that this wasn't their fight. The losses of Beatrice and Gabrielle only supported those leaflets, and on the 17th of March, under cover of darkness, most fled. The few remaining TIEs and French forces were forced to withdraw from yet another outpost, on Marie. The resupply initiative was being hampered by Viet Minh anti-aircraft, which also meant that new officers and soldiers couldn't come to replace the ones that were lost, or were only in small amounts. However, one French officer led an assault on an enemy heavy machine gun position, killing 350 Viet Minh soldiers while only losing 20 of his own. By 30th of March, there were only 2 major outposts left, Elaine and Dominique. After that, there would only be the main part of the fort left to take. Viet Minh General Vo Nguyen Kiep attempted to use the same tactics used to take the previous outposts, but the fighting this time was less successful. The fight for the positions was bloody, with attacks and counterattacks racking up Viet Minh casualties. At one point, the French even used tanks. The French, though, were forced to retreat from most of those positions. By the 15th of April, amid mounting casualties and an increasingly demoralized army, Giep changed tactics. Slowly he began digging trenches around certain positions, cutting them off from the main part of the fort. A major counterattack was made to resupply the soldiers with food and water, But despite the success, the French still suffered greatly. The French position had become dire, and the Viet Minh took full advantage, launching multiple assaults that captured many of the positions and even 90% of the airfield, completely cutting off the already small French supplies and reinforcements. By 7th May, the French were down to their last loads of ammunition, water, food, and defendable areas of the fort. They were down to 3,000 men. The Viet Minh launched a final assault with 25,000 men. On the 8th, the last radio transmission said, "The enemy has overrun us. We are blowing up everything. Vive la France." The surrender followed soon after. The loss was devastating to the French, with such deep repercussions that the French government even resigned, with the replacement government signing off on a Geneva Accords, ending the war officially on the 1st of August 1954. Most of the prisoners captured by the Viet Minh would not see home again tragically. Castries would be one of those fortunate enough to be sent home after only 4 months. Vietnam would be divided in two, along the 17th parallel, Ho Chi Minh and his communists taking the north, and Bao Dai and his nationalists taking the south, with the promise of a future election taking place to decide the future of Vietnam. As we all know, though, no such elections would be taking place. Goodbye, everyone, and don't forget to
Take it sleazy.